We want to talk about what we can do to prevent some of the things that we've been talking about, actually. And I'm hoping you can give us some tips on prevention, actually.
Yes, so one of the things we haven't talked about yet is the omega-3 fatty acids. So the omega-3s, especially the DHA. DHA is docosahexaenoic acid. This is one of those important omega-3s that concentrates in the macula of the eye. And it's actually brain and eye food. And without getting enough DHA from the diet, because our body doesn't produce the DHA, what happens is that we become deficient in the DHA, and then we are lacking in the food for our eyes. And it's difficult to get the DHA from vegetarian sources. We need something, a very specific enzyme, 6-alpha desaturase, to be able to convert those omega-3s from the diet, from the ALA, into the EPA and DHA, which are the important essential EFAs. And without having enough of these omega-3s and if we don't have enough of that enzyme to convert it from the vegetarian sources, then we can develop this DHA deficiency. And because our body doesn't produce it, we need to get it from the outside. One of the most concentrated forms of DHA that we can get from a food source is fish, yet not enough people are eating healthy, clean fish. And this is my issue with eating fish. I rarely eat fish anymore, and I know how healthy it is, and getting those omega-3s, we hear about this in the news all the time, get your omega-3s, because of the toxicity in the fish. And this is something that I actually for years now have not recommended eating too much fish as your source of your DHA. I always believe that it's better to get it in a concentrated supplement form. So that's something that you can do your own research on, but certainly getting that concentrated DHA is so, so important for the eyes, and it concentrates in the macula, remember, at the back of the eye, and this is why we need that DHA, and it's something that I suggest that you take on a daily basis to prevent your eyes from developing issues, but also remember from that blue light radiation to prevent, from that macular degeneration as well.
There's a lot to think about here,
Yes.
It's a lot to keep in mind for ourselves, and as we go forward into this rest of the hour also, we're going to be talking about our pets and kids and such, and the beauty tip coming up for you on the way with your facial exercise, hopefully on the horizon to look forward to. But there are omega-3s, lutein. Exposure to technology is a big one now. It's something that has a lot of side effects, I think, besides what we're talking about. But certainly, I mean, that must be something that's a major part of our culture now. How do we avoid that?
Well, yeah, and this is the thing. So when we can't stop working, we can't stop using technology, but by implementing some of the things that we talked about, whether it is the glasses, whether it is being able to increase in the diet the lutein, the zeaxanthin, and all the other antioxidants as well. It's important to be able to do that and to take those little breaks with the eyes and doing those exercises. I have another exercise. Should we do it?
Yeah, sure.
So this is another fantastic eye exercise that helps with focus. So often when we're focusing at one distance, so that would be either our cell phone, our tablet, it could be our computer screen, that our eyes are always at that one distance. The eyes don't like that because then they are using and they're getting lazy. So what we want to do is we want to exercise our eyes, much like we exercise at the gym, our biceps or our other muscle groups. We want to ask our eyes to focus on something that's close to us. That could be our computer screen. In this case, we're just going to hold our arm. So okay. I want everybody at home, I want you to be doing this. I know you're typing in your questions and things, but just put those aside for a second. Come off the keyboard for a second. So
yeah, pretend you're taking a selfie.
Yeah, a lot of you have some more practice at this than others. I'm still learning, and I'm horrible. So what you're going to do is you're going to focus on your hand that's close to you. Now I want you to pick an object about 5 to 10 feet away from you, and you're going to focus on that object that's 5 to 10 feet away. And then you're going to come in close, focus here, and then focus far away. And then focus close, and focus far away. And you just repeat this back and forth about, 5 to 10 times. And you can do this throughout the day a few times, but this is, such a fantastic way to be able now to have that proper focus and to allow your eyes to relax and then focus at different distances. So it really helps with maintaining that eyesight, especially as you're aging.
Is it possible, I don't know if we were going to be talking about this during this segment, but do you think it's possible to reverse eye problems? So for example, if I'm wearing glasses, and I have been for a few years, is there ever a chance of me going back to not wearing glasses, or at least strengthening the eyes better?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where people think, oh, I wear glasses, I'm always going to have to wear glasses. No, with doing the eye exercises, this is one of the tissues in the eye. The eye tissue is a tissue of the body that can actually regenerate really quickly, and given the right circumstances. And I believe that that's just like, you know, the lizard who loses the tail and can regrow the tail. I believe that a lot of our tissues, and this is yet still to be discovered in science, but I think a lot of our tissues have the ability to reverse, and when we talk about the aging process, reversing that aging process and to get some of that functionality back again, given the right environment. So researchers are looking at this right now. One of the other things that we can do in terms of prevention is to make sure that we have enough B12. So vitamin B12 is really important, and some more recent research has really looked at, and this is one of the things that I just recently discovered, that vitamin B12 has a lot to do with those photoreceptors in the eyes, and the ability for B12 we know is important for the nerves of the body. And thinking, when we talked about the optic nerves, the optic nerve at the back of the eye is what sends that signal to the brain so that we know exactly what we're looking at. And now that connection with protecting the nerves, having enough of that B12 is important. And that B12, now that the researchers have found, is linked to the photo sensitivity in the eyes, and especially the adenosylcobalamin. So not just any B12, but the adenosylcobalamin has and mediates the light-dependent gene regulation in the photoprotective cellular response. So this is something that is a more recent study that has been done, and really promising information in terms of being able to, you know, just with simple making sure that we have enough of the vitamins in our diet. And if it's not in the diet, B12 is very difficult to get in the diet, especially for vegetarians. So often this is B12 you get from organ meats and things. If you're a vegetarian, it's difficult to get enough of that vegetarian source of B12. So often this needs to be supplemented. And yes, you can find vegetarian supplements that are fermented from microorganisms of B12, which is really important to make sure that you've got enough B12 to help to wake up. One of the things that the researchers are talking about is that it's almost like at the back of the eye, the neurons, they forget as they're aging, they sort of forget what they're supposed to be doing. So, and that if you think about the aging process, a lot of the cells in our bodies sort of forget how to be active and alive and young. And this is why the vision starts to go, especially after age 40. That is such a commonality when I talk to my friends, which I'm much past 40, but that this is something, it didn't happen to me, thankfully, but at the age of 40, a lot of them were talking about, you know, oh, all of a sudden I'm having to do this. And I have to admit, I have to do it a little bit. My eyes are not as they used to be, but certainly much better, and it's happening much later, if I told you how old I am, as compared to a lot of the people that I talk to. So, but why is that? Well, yes, I take my B12, and yes, I make sure that I'm having those antioxidants, and yes, my phone is on. So all of these little tips that we're sharing in this hour are things that you can do to really help to prevent and slow down that aging process, specifically in the eyes.
What's great about this show, too, is that Q&A, Questions with Natural Answers, with Dr. Janine, and remember to follow her on Instagram at Dr. Janine, spell it all out, DoctorJanine, is that Dr. Janine doesn't have to just speak in sound bites here. Here, we can get a little bit more deeper, a lot more deeper into the issue, actually.